Ryoji Ikeda was born in 1966 in Gifu, Japan, but currently lives and works between Paris, France and Kyoto, Japan. He focuses on the essential characteristics of sound itself and that of visuals as light by means of both mathematical precision and mathematical aesthetics. Ikeda, one might say, is a connoisseur of calibrated threshold experiences, adept at composing situations where pleasure coexists with a kind of ambient unease at reaching cognitive extremes.
Ryoji Ikeda plays on the idea of data as a spectacle, essentially forcing coding and numbers into an art form. He has been active for 20 years, with his first gallery appearance being in Rotterdam and his most recent being in Moscow. Ikeda's work has been showcased in varying forms in galleries and installations in nearly 50 different cities around the world, with significant support from the European art scene. His gallery pieces feature powerful multi-sensory installations that manipulate frequencies of sounds, while projections are used to create a visual representation of the sensory experience that the audio implies. His installation Datamatics was showcased in Madrid and featured corridors of projection that played with the human senses when this was paired with his abstract audio. Simply watching footage of this installation created sensory overload, making me wonder just how powerful his work would be in the flesh. Spectra, one of his site-specific works, was showcased in multiple cities internationally, such as Amsterdam, Paris and Barcelona, where 49 intense bright lights were employed as a sculptural material. Ikeda actually showcased Spectra in London to commemorate the outbreak of the First World War, and even Boris Johnson commented on the impact of how the body of light was able to attract and alter the environment in London, which is one of Ikeda's main aims. Johnson said it echoes how the First World War affected London, but also how the country came together during those dark days.
Stylistically, Ikeda explores physicality of sound and how it manifests visually. This becomes a unique practice when the sounds are electronic and do not come from a physical source. This means that comprehensible sound paired with incomprehensible visual. Beauty in pristine clarity, geometry, numbers, and basic colors, or lack thereof. There is a sort of poetics in the digital world. The sound is pitched at a point where the listener can begin to access it, which brings about intrigue, contemplation, and the evolution of thought or narrative in the spectators. His work is a test for the audience's senses. It's atmospheric, ominous, frightening, serious, unemotional, and yet somehow comforting as opposed to alienating. His work shows us that we are not beyond the ability to manufacture wonder and awe. It is not something that is simply reserved to nature. Humanity created a concept that it itself is unable to comprehend, which is infinity. Ikeda manages to give us a glimpse into what infinity really is. He allows us to perceive that which we're unable to perceive, to make us feel something of infinity, to locate it in our nerve endings, thus creating a visceral impact rather than an intellectual one.
Everyone takes inspiration from somewhere or something in order to create work. Pieces of art or design is moulded by putting together differing ideas to make that unique piece that people can then call their own. Having said this, it is difficult to depict Ikeda's general inspirations for his work. When searching on the internet, Wikipedia will tell you that his inspiration on one specific piece for TWA Flight Center was actually inspired by the surroundings around him rather than a specific style that he follows. This is interesting because it shows that actually Ikeda may not have a deeper inspiration and is purely subjective to the environment that is around him. Another example of this is an article written by the University Musical Society, of whom contextualize his work in the sense of physics and the notion of quantum mechanics. It isn't fairly obvious that his work is scientific due to the abstract nature of his art form, but in an article by The Guardian in 2015, it was revealed that Ikeda actually was based at the European Organisation for Nuclear Research. In regards to people, it still remains unknown to me who Ikeda takes inspiration from. Artist Peter Wiebel questioned Ikeda and actually referenced certain artists, which then Ikeda sort of abandoned the idea of, saying that his work did not relate to them because of difference in visions that they see. Overall, it is clear to see that Ikeda generally takes inspiration from the intricacies of science, but in particular pieces can draw different ideas and channels through the environment that the piece is surrounded by.